Hey folks, how you doing? All right. Uh, I was thinking about three gods, a triad called Asar, Ta, Ra. These are three major gods in the Kemite system. Okay, and I believe Ta was the first though. Ta was the oldest out of this triad. Okay, he goes back tens and tens of thousands of years. Okay, and not only that, Ta was the prototype of the Buddha. And Ta and the Buddha have a lot of attributes in common. And one of them, these is that both of them were called the opener. Okay, but we know that the time of Ta was far earlier than that of the Buddha, because the time of Ta was so far back. You know what I mean? That there probably when no one was living in Asia. The folks are still living in Africa. So we know that Ta was the older. Okay, but when the folks carried on and took their rituals and their gods and everything with them when they left Africa, they took Ta with them, and eventually Ta became the Buddha. Now, these two, the words, the letters in these two names can be transliterated and shown that they are the same. Okay, but do that another time. But then we have, we'll go back to Asar. Asar was the first one in this triad here. And Asar was a very a powerful god in his time. Okay. And not only that, his time went all the way up to, well, to the beginning of the Piscean Age. Christianity came in. You see what I mean? So the transition, okay, into the Christian religion was the transition occurred with from the Ausar doctrine to the Christian doctrine at the beginning of the age of Pisces or thereabout. You know what I mean? Because they changed up at the beginning and end of a precessional period, which is about 2,155 years. They changed the cult and so forth and so on, and God with it. Okay, but the Christians who were Africans at the beginning, you know, I mean Egyptians, they saw the transfer from the Assyrian doctrine to the Christian doctrine is a natural thing, a natural movement, because it has always happened. They had always changed from one cult to another at the end of a precessional period, which the end it was the beginning of another precessional period. And so that's how Christianity came in. It was a continuation of the Assyrian doctrine. Now, to get a better idea of Asar, he is the god of the underworld. Okay? And he is chief god of the underworld, you know, and people loved him because with the Assyrian doctrine, there was no death. Oh, the people loved that. You know, there was no death. And so, but Asar, okay, he had his problems in the underworld, you know what I mean? But we'll give an example of the underworld. Which a lot of people misunderstand just what this underworld is. You know, they think, well, it's a terrible thing, you know, underworld being below or something like that. No. But here we go. Now, we'll take an example of a child, okay, a baby, just born into the world. Okay, when that child born into the world, he's born into the underworld. This earthly life is the underworld. Now, the child has got to go through his struggles in life. He's got to struggle through, you know, and like all of us, okay? And people can have some difficult times. Well, that's Asar in the underworld. They're having his difficult times, okay? It's the same principle, okay? Now, the child, okay, he will go through life and he will, let's say, eventually overcome the difficulties of this earthly life, not by dying, but by transformation. You know, he makes a transformation to a higher level of consciousness. And this is when he comes out of the underworld. He's free of the shackles of the underworld. He's free of the ups and downs of the underworld. Okay, so this is the same thing goes with the Tsar. Okay, and this is why the people love him so much too. You know what I mean? But he's the god of the underworld. He doesn't leave there. But what happens is that the Tsar transforms. Let's say, or let us say, he was born or reborn as his own son. Okay, who happened to be Haru, who comes out of the underworld. But Ausar stays there. That's probably difficult to understand. But that's the mythology, and mythology is difficult to understand. You know what I mean? But yeah, well, given that example about the child, they should give a good idea about what we're talking about, the Ausar. Now, we must keep in mind that the Ausar, the god Ausar, was not a human being. None of them were. Okay? But now we'll go to the god Ptah, okay? Who, they say Ptah dug a tunnel through the earth so that the sun god could travel all around, all about, okay? So we see that Ptah is actually clearing a path as he digs this tunnel through the earth, okay? Which happens to be, let's say, the human body. Okay, so what Ptah is doing is creating a means where a person could overcome the difficulties of earth. Okay, where a person can raise his level of consciousness by doing certain exercises. Okay, and now we could look at these exercises, for example, as creating energy. Okay. At the bottom of the spinal canal, and have this energy rise up through the spinal canal. As it goes through the spinal canal, it attracts energy from each what they call nerve plexus that are lined up along the spine. You draw energy from each one of them, and as this energy increases, okay, it goes all the way up. It gets more powerful, stronger, and it goes to the brain. Okay, and this is where the enlightenment comes in at. But this energy now that makes it to the brain has left the body, and it's cool. Because when the energy is taken from these nerve plexes, it cools the body down because the nerve plexes actually stimulate with their energy the organs of the body and the muscles of the body. But this energy here is being accumulated and taken as it goes up through the spinal canal. It leaves the body cool, and the brain gets all the energy. And this is where the enlightenment comes from, because it energizes and activates, stimulates the organs, the structures of the brain. Like the ventricles, for example, and the pineal gland that happen to be in the third ventricle, And this is where a type of enlightenment comes from. And the increase of activity in these structures in the brain, okay, is what gives enlightenment, and so-called freedom, etc., that they talk about. When people say they experienced bliss, etc., heavenly bliss, it's right here. Due to the energy, this great amount of energy rising up to the brain. Okay? So this is what Ptah does. But this requires also getting rid of emotional attachments like love, hate, and feelings of self-importance, prestige, esteem, all that, pride, and all that. Well, those things must fall by the wayside, and the energy that supported them rises up to the brain. Okay? And so this was the work of Ptah when it said that he dug a tunnel through the earth. You know what I mean? So solar energy could move around. So that the solar energy could go right on up to the brain, okay, and where we experience enlightenment, okay. So that's the work of Ptah, okay, and like I say, he was a very ancient god, and we see that he even cleared the path maybe for the Ausarian. This is the person going through the initiation process in the Kemite temple, Okay, them were referred to as the deceased because they had died to the things of this earthly life, died to the superficiality of world things. So they called him the deceased because he had died to these things. Not only that, he was he wanted to become an Osiris, and Osiris is the god of the dead down there in the underworld, right? So we have an understanding, maybe now of Ausar, an understanding of Ptah and what he did, and then we have the god Ra. Okay, now Ra, he was around for a long time, but he wasn't really noticed as a major god until he becomes Atum Ra. Okay, when he becomes Atum Ra, then he becomes a major god. Okay, and one to be reckoned with. And he was like the god, let's say, of Heliopolis or Anu. Okay, and this is the main. They had the main temple there. You know what I mean? It was big time. That situation, okay, and so yeah, Ra became a major god, but there was a little like back and forth between God Ra and Ausar because Ausar became very, very popular amongst the people because they liked that idea of eternal life, and so eventually it seems that Ausar had won out. Okay, because so many people loved him and loved that type of philosophy, spirituality, etc. Okay, but then we have Christianity comes in at around the end of the at the beginning of the Piscean age. Okay, and so the Assyrian doctrine then okay is continued in the Christian situation, you know, and so the Christ took over and was moved, started in Egypt, but was moved to Rome. And over the time, things changed in the religion. They didn't continue with the original doctrines. They made a change, you see. And not only that, they made the gods human. Now, Jesus is supposed to be a guy who walked down the street. And and all the prophets and all that became human. Well, it was never meant to be that way. It was never that way until later. You know what I mean? But the older folks, the earlier people, you know what I mean? They always knew that the gods were not human, and it was never meant to be taken that way. Okay, the gods were simply were attributes, etc. That a person could call on. There were states of energy that a person could call on within himself. You know what I mean? But anyway, the change came, and they made the gods human, and so forth and so on. And the spirituality of the religion seemed to lose ground in favor of materialism and the superficiality of life. Okay, folks. Thanks for listening, and I'll get back with you again with some more talk about the gods. Okay. All right. Have a good day, folks. Take it easy, and we'll see you again.